We are going to do some cashews, but we're going to combine it with Hanukkah. Okay, and we'll get into some really heavy-duty halacha, which, Baruch Hashem, I think for the most part, we will all be able to understand, because we've been working at cashews for so long. So, okay. Now, the question arises, so the Mechaber writes in Orach Chaim 673.1, the Mechaber is who? Yosef Karo, right? Rabbi Yosef Karo, who was a Talmid of the Arizal. So he was originally from Spain. He emigrated to Eretz Israel. So he was with the Arizal in Tzfas. He is the author of the Shulchan Aruch, the Standard Code of Jewish Law. And the Mechaber writes regarding Hanukkah that all oils are kosher for Ner Hanukkah. Okay, that's his first statement. However, as the Mechaber himself explains, this means only that oils which are disqualified for Shabbos because they are not drawn properly by the wick may nevertheless be used for Hanukkah. So he's qualifying his statement that all oils are kosher for Ner Hanukkah, and he means that this is supposed to include oils that have been disqualified for Shabbos because they haven't been drawn properly through their wick. So you can allow in Hilchos Shabbos and the laws of Shabbos, you can allow oil to be drawn through a wick, but it has to be set up from before Shabbos, for example. And it can't be interfered with once Shabbos has begun. So if an oil has been disqualified for this reason, for use on Shabbos, nevertheless, the Mechaber is saying you are allowed to use that oil for Ner Hanukkah, for lighting the Hanukkah light. Okay. However, so that is the purpose of him saying that all oils are permitted, but really there are oils that aren't permitted. So there are in fact oils which may not be used for Hanukkah. One should not use oils which are Isrei Hana, so from which benefit may not be derived. Okay, and these types of oils are orla. So we know what orla is, right? So orla would be fruits of the first 3 years of a tree, which we are not allowed to consume, right? We can only consume from the 4th year. So orla is out, or something which is prohibited because of basar b'chalav. So basar, meat, b'chalav, with milk, so meat and milk cooked together. Okay, so it's noted that one may not nullify the basar b'chalav in 60 parts in order to use it for Neros Hanukkah. That's what the Mishnah Berurah brings down. Okay, but that's what we're going to focus on in a second. But first, then other oils that are not permitted because of Isrei Hana, so forbidden things from which we're not allowed to derive any benefit, would be oil of Shemitah. So Shemitah is the sabbatical year, the produce of the sabbatical year, and we are not allowed to use that for purposes of Ner Hanukkah. And likewise, mius, if a mouse was found in the oil It may not be used because it is miucid. It's repugnant.
What about oils put aside for use by the Kohanes in the temple?
I mean, that, I don't know quite how you, I mean, that is the original Hanukkah oil. That's why we have Hanukkah, no?
Also, if it's put aside for the Kohanes to use in the temple, you can use it for Hanukkah then.
Right, but we don't have a temple. We don't have.
What about if it's from something like a plant where you have to give a certain percentage to the temple? I forget what the name for that is. Like if you got, yeah, that's the name. Like if you put aside 10% of what you grow, the crops, if you're using those crops to make oil, then that's put aside for like sacred uses. Or would that be usable for Hanukkah?
Just because it's been taken for Truma or Meiser doesn't mean that it's Hekdesh. Hekdesh is something that's consecrated for the temple, so that's a different category which we haven't dealt with very much. If we finish Eruvin, then we're going to start to deal with that a lot, because we'll start with Daf Yomi, and they're in the middle of Kedoshim right now. So, but I mean, yeah. So you, yeah, and it says a person a person who lit with stolen oil. If a person lit with stolen oil, it is questionable whether he has fulfilled his mitzvah. So that would be more this parsha. So, because you would be, and Israel would be stealing from a Kohen if it were Truma or Meiser, or from a Levi, right? So the answer would likely be no. Because an Israel can't have benefit from that, from Trumas or Meiser. So that's the privilege of a Kohen or of a Levi. Okay, so the point here being that we have Israel Hana, forbidden things from which we can't derive any benefit, and we already knew actually that basar v'chalav is one of these things, that meat and milk together are one of these things. How did we know that?
Because we have three pasuks 3 times, and
right.
3 times he mentions one of the things that we cannot derive benefit.
Right. Or so because the pasuk that you shouldn't cook the kid in the mother's milk is repeated 3 times in the Torah, and from that we learn out 3 things. So we learn that we can't eat it, we can't cook it, and we can't derive benefit from it. So, okay, so we already knew that about basar v'chalav, in other words. Now, now we're going to work on that idea. If I can pull up another file here. Got it. All right. So, the Pri Megadim, Rabbi Yosef Toev, who lived in the early 18th century and learned in a base midrash in Berlin, died. He's buried in Frankfurt on the Oder, or actually just on the Polish side of the Oder River. It used to be part of Germany, now it's part of Poland. Okay, and the Pri Megadim is quoted all over Yoreh De'ah, the Yoreh De'ah section of the Shulchan Aruch. So he has actually 3 different works, and so no part of Kashrus doesn't have a lot of commentary by the Pri Megadim. So the Pri Megadim, he brings the Mishnah in Tamora 33b that categorizes all Isurei Hana'ah, so all forbidden things from which no benefit may derive. The Pri Megadim categorizes them into two categories. One, min hanikvarim, so things that must be buried, or min ha-nisrafim, or things which must be burned. So the Mishnah, this Mishnah in Tamora 33b, it says that basar v'chalav, that is asar midoraisa, that is forbidden on a Torah level, is min hanikvarim. So it is something that has to be buried. Okay? So these are building blocks we have to have so that then we can understand the problem that's going to come up. Therefore, even if you burned the basar v'chalav into ashes, the ashes are asur. The ashes are forbidden. This is how the Rambam paskins. However, so the Minchas Yaakov, he holds that the ashes would be mutter, they would be permitted because there's no milk left in them. Okay, but the Taz comes and he argues on the Minchas Yaakov, the Taz, he agrees with the Minchas Yaakov, the Shach, he disagrees with the Minchas Yaakov because he says that that basar v'chalav is an isur machmas atzmo. That means it is something, it has an essence all of its own. And we've talked about this before, that if you cook meat and milk together, then it's no longer just meat, it's no longer milk, it's meat and milk, right? So it's a particular entity that has its own essence, right? And according to the Shach, then because it's an Isser Machmes Atzmo, then you can't separate the milk and the meat anymore. And so the ashes remain forbidden. Even the ashes then remain forbidden. Okay, so the Pri Megadim, he holds by the Shach. And, okay, so that has relevance to the question of Ner Hanukkah, because sometimes people use ashes in order to prepare the wicks to light them, right? So if then the ashes themselves are asur, then they couldn't be used for this purpose.
What do the ashes do to the wick that's useful?
That they help to ignite the wick.
If you tell me that sounds odd, because how could that work? Because the ashes have already been burnt in a way. So how can they help something else burn? If you tell me it works, then I'll believe you.
Yeah, no, it does work. The idea is, that there's like fuel there, and that's precisely what we can't be using. Okay, but because
we can't derive benefit from something like that. We just can't use it. Period.
All right. Now we'll elaborate on this idea. All right, so the Bishel Achar Bishel, okay? Now, the Piskei Teshuva brings the Shar Ephraim, who ruled that butter cooked in a ben yomo meat pot cannot be used for the oil to light the Hanukkah menorah. Cannot be. All right, so let's think about this. What is butter? First of all, what is a ben yomo meat pot?
It's a meat, but that was stored for 24 hours.
It was what?
Was not used for 24 hours?
No, it was used. Eno ben yomo means that it wasn't used within 24 hours. Ben yomo means that it was ben yomo, so within the day.
Okay.
Yeah. So, Rachel, I just wanted to make sure that you heard this before. So this is kind of like advanced stuff here. So don't feel bad if you're going to be lost.
That's okay. You're right. I am a little lost.
Okay.
But thank
So
you.
don't feel bad. This is like top of the ladder stuff that we're going to be discussing here. But I hope to do it.
Happy to be here.
I hope to do it in a way that we can all follow along. Okay. So
Yeah.
okay.
Thank you.
All right. So okay. So the Piskei Tshuva, he rules that butter cooked in a ben yomo meat pot cannot be used for the oil to light the Hanukkah menorah. Now, we just said that a ben yomo meat pot is a meat pot that has been used within the last 24 hours, right? So that means that we have fresh blias, we have fresh taste of meat in the walls of this pot. And now we've cooked butter in the pot. And because we've cooked butter in this pot, then the butter is liquid, hot liquid, so it's going to draw the taste out of the sides of the pot. And so it's going to create basar chalav, right? Because we have the taste of meat in the pot that we're drawing out, and it's not pagum. The taste hasn't been spoiled because it's within 24 hours. And so we're drawing this taste back out, and that's going to combine with the butter, and so it's pagum. It's not pagum, it is basar chalav.
And we cannot give back benefit.
Right, and so we said before that basar chalav is a forbidden substance from which we cannot derive benefit. Okay? Calvin?
Given the new rules, I didn't want to speak before I was called on. What about when the oil comes from an animal, and what if it's a non-kosher animal, like a whale? Like, I don't know if the Jews take whale oil, because like Europeans use that a lot. And there you're having the meat getting drawn out by using it. So could you use whale oil?
For the Hanukkah candles?
Actually, for anything, but especially for the Hanukkah candles. Because it's a non-kosher animal.
Right. That's a good question. I mean, I think the answer is yes. Tentatively, I would say yes. Why don't we check up on that? But let's get into. Let's keep it here. We have. Okay, so. Because it's not a forbidden thing from which we cannot derive benefit. Right? It's not Isurei Bahana whale oil, obviously, because we heat with it, for example.
You just can't eat it.
Right, you just can't eat it.
Okay.
So, would be my initial thought, but we'll check up on it. Okay, so. Okay. Now, we have a concept that we learned in Tractate Eruvin, that, I think that's where we learned it, that we don't derive benefit from a mitzvah. Because it's assumed that we are obligated to do the mitzvah, so we're not deriving benefit from it. There's no hana'ah, there's no benefit associated with a mitzvah. And so, And so just because it is basar v'chalav and it's in iser b'hana, that means it's a forbidden thing from which we can't derive benefit. Because Ner Hanukkah is a mitzvah, then we should be able to use the basar v'chalav for the mitzvah. Yeah?
Meaning it's okay to derive benefit?
Meaning that would seem plausible.
But it's a mitzvah not eat the basar v'chala, so there's a problem because it's a mitzvah no eat the basar v'chala in a sense.
Okay, so we're not allowed to. We've got our butter that's been cooked in a ben yoma meat pot. It is basar v'chalav. Basar v'chalav we're not allowed to eat, cook, or derive benefit from. Right.
So you'd be deriving benefit from this.
Potentially, if we were just to light our basar v'chalav, our butter cooked in the ben yoma meat pot, if we were to just light it for our own lighting purposes, we wanted to illuminate the room, then we would not be allowed to do that. However, we're talking about Ner Hanukkah here, right, which is a mitzvah. And because it's a mitzvah, then we don't derive any benefit from it, right? And the proof of that is that we need a shamash there, and we're not allowed to derive benefit from the light of Hanukkah, right? And so it would seem then that we can use the oil cooked in the ben yoma meat pot for the light to light the Hanukkah lights, right?
Well, the way you're phrasing this is there's a catch someplace.
Well, right, but are we following along? I mean, it's very interesting, no?
The logic is there.
It's cool. It's cool here. All right, so. Okay, so although the aser butter should be mutter to use because there is no hana derived from performing a mitzvah, however, there is an overriding reason to aser this oil, to forbid this oil.
Okay.
Right? Okay. Why? Because, and we've also had this consideration, I think, in Eruvin. So, since we don't consider something that is aser b'hana to have a shiur,
A portion.
right, a portion, like a measurement, a measure is exactly what it is. So, a Ner Hanukkah needs a shiur, a half an hour's amount of burning time. Therefore, it seems we have a problem.
I knew there was a catch.
Right? So, but it's not the hana. Well, it is because in other words, we said at the outset, that basar v'chalav is something that is min hanikvarim. It is something that should be buried. And when something is slated for burial, because it's forbidden, then we treat it as if it's gone already. So it has no portion. And that's the same with something that is min hanisafrim, so something that is slated to be burned, it's the same thing. Right? So already we're treating this thing as if it is already out of this world. It's not here anymore. And so it doesn't have a portion. There's no shiur to it. And because there's no shiur to it, there's no measure to it, then it can't be used for Ner Hanukkah, which needs a measure, namely half an hour time. It has to burn for a half an hour. All right? Now, there's a problem with that, but we'll leave that.
There's a catch to the catch.
There's a catch to that catch. Pretty evident one, I would say. Maybe we should do that one here while we can nail that one down. Yeah, this is a good one. Okay, the Piskei Tshuva said that butter cooked in a ben yoma meat pot shouldn't be used for Ner Hanukkah since, as an Isur, it doesn't have a shiur, while Ner Hanukkah requires a shiur. Okay. However, this is a time shiur, not a physical shiur. So what would his so would his logic still hold? Well, right? So we're talking about apples and oranges. In other words, how can we? So this shiur is time. We need 30 minutes, and the other one is a fuel, right? So, okay, there is an opinion like that brought in the Darkei Teshuvah. We can answer that the Shar Ephraim holds that if we say that there is no shiur, not even a tiny bit of ash, then technically there is no fuel. Since hadlacha is the mitzvah, nothing is being lit if there is no shiur. So since the mitzvah is the actual kindling, nothing is being lit if there's no shiur. Right. So if there's no fuel, nothing's being lit. So
you can light it as long as nothing's being lit?
No. So in other words, this logic would hold. Furthermore, this would only. Okay, wait a minute. Maybe that's not. Let's leave that. What I just said. Okay. Furthermore, this would only be according to Minchas Yaakov, who says that the ashes are mutter. So we had before that the ashes are mutter because the milk has burned out of them. This is because you have some fuel, even the smallest amount. So in the ashes, right? So if the ashes are asur, if they're forbidden, then halakhically they have the din of being non-existent. Consequently, even though it will burn for the proper amount of time, we say that the oil is min hanikvarim, meaning that it must be buried. We are in essence saying that there is no oil there, not even a tiny drop, since it is all asur. Right.
So what's the final verdict?
So in other words, then we're saying that there's no, if we're going to hold that since we don't consider something that is asur bahana to have a shiur, and Ner Hanukkah needs a shiur, then it's not going to work for Ner Hanukkah. Right.
I don't understand the concept. Could you explain not only what a shiur is, but
portion,
the difference?
A measure.
What's the difference between a measure of time and a measure of substance?
Right. So we're saying in the end we're saying that because this has no measure of substance whatsoever, then it's not going to generate any time. So it's not going to, right? It's not going to work.
So if something it doesn't exist in physical space, you can't measure it because it doesn't exist, sort of. Like in the tabernacle, they said if you measured all the dimensions, then I forget the right thing, where the altar was or something, didn't exist.
Right.
Because all the inches were taken up by this other space, so like this didn't exist. Like, I don't know how to say it any better than that.
Right.
So is that an example that
right.
there was no shiur of measurement of space?
So there's no, because this is something slated for burial, then we're already treating it as if it's not in the world. And therefore, it can't be the source of, it can't be fuel to sustain a light for any period of time. And so the one does affect the other, in other words. Okay. So So the Piskei Tshuva then brings the Eliyahu Rabbah that holds that there is an Isur to light the wicks, since it will be cooking basar b'chalav. All right?
Interesting.
Okay, so now we've got the question. So is there bishul acher bishul? If there is there cooking after cooking with basar b'chalav?
Yes.
So I'll say no, just so we have the bases covered.
Oh, but yeah, that's true.
I think we've got a ringer in here who knows the answer, but but
It's the same as baking and cooking. There is always cooking after baking. So in this case, this is a new entity. So it was not cooked before. It was like it wasn't cooked before. So it's a new entity. It's gonna be cooked.
all right. So we know. But the question here would be a little different because we know that we're not allowed to cook basar b'chalav, right?
Okay.
So the question is, if we cook it again, once the basar b'chalav has been made, if we cook it again, are we over the lav of cooking basar b'chalav again?
You told me if I took fried breadcrumbs and I put them in my soup, it wouldn't be cooking a second time. So I could use the fried breadcrumbs. I couldn't use the challah bread.
Right. This is the principle that we're working with. So this bishul achar bishul, which is literally means cooking after cooking. This we find in the Shabbos kitchen. Right now, we're talking. The interesting thing here is that we're talking about bishul achar bishul outside of the Shabbos kitchen. I find that pretty interesting. Right. So, but. And we're talking about it in association with the Isser of cooking meat and milk together, right? So for purposes of the Shabbos kitchen, what we're saying with bishul achar bishul, with yesh bishul achar bishul, there is cooking after cooking, and ein bishul achar bishul, there is no cooking after cooking. What we're saying is that if you've cooked a solid. And this solid then cools down.
Yeah, I was going to say that.
And then you put the solid back on your hot plate on Shabbos to heat it up. Are you cooking it again?
No.
And the law is
keeping it warm.
The law, right? You're just warming it up. There is no, and so this is where this law comes in. So ein bishul achar bishul. There is no cooking after cooking with dry solids that have been cooked previously, right? So now that's not the so belach. So with liquids, so yesh bishul achar bishul. There is cooking after cooking. If liquids cool down, if you heated up your water, so to near boiling, and then your water cooled down, if you heat that up again on Shabbos, you're cooking. And you are over the derisa of cooking. You are over cooking on a big biblical level.
But there's an exception for oil. But
No, there's oil is a liquid, so it would be the same. But that's a good. Okay, but.
But there's no cooking in a sense because it's not going to a point of like boiling thing, like just to let it boil or something like that. It's just warming. I don't think it's boiling the liquid or something like that.
No, but I mean, okay, so here, right? So here, then, it's an interesting question. The liquid aspect complicates things, I would say, but let's just pretend that it doesn't for a second.
Okay.
Now let's consider basar b'chalav, so meat and milk, in terms of bishul achar bishul. Right. The question is, so we've already cooked this once, which was a no-no. We shouldn't have done that. Right. So now we have this entity that is basar b'chalav. Right. So in our case, this is a liquid. It is butter that's been cooked in a ben yomo meat pot. Right? So it's a liquid, although maybe it's congealed again. So it could be in a solid state. Okay, now the question is, if we heat this up again with a lot of heat, not just warming it, but Yad Soletis bow at the high end of Yad Soletis bow, because there are two ways of looking at Yad Soletis bow. Yad Soletis bow is the degree of heat that it would take for your hand to recoil from the heat. And we have two different degrees of that depending on how we're looking at things. But in this case, then this is a high degree of heat, and it's capable of cooking. Yeah. And so the question is then, if we heat up our basar b'chalav, our butter in the Ben Yoma meat pot, if we heat this up again, are we over the prohibition, the biblical prohibition of cooking meat and milk together again?
But I'm sorry. There's going to be the same situation as we say before with there's no measure, there's no portion. You cannot cook in anything, in a sense.
That's not bad.
I don't know, is that the conclusion?
Okay.
Is this the same or a different principle? Like, I was really looking forward to the second serving of the stuffed cabbage. And Hadassah looked at it, she says, I'm going to get it reversed. She says, oh, it's congealed too much. Now if we heat it up, it'll be a problem. It's not a liquid anymore. Or maybe reversing. Maybe
No,
it's the
she
other way.
said...
If it's congealed, we can heat it up.
Oh, but it wasn't congealed. It was too liquidy.
Right, that was the problem.
So then we couldn't because it was too liquidy.
Right.
Because I remember being slightly traumatized. I was really looking forward to having it. It's like, so, but that's sort of a similar principle.
So, okay, and there it was because yesh bishalach bishal balach. So yes, there is cooking after cooking with liquids that we couldn't.
But not when it's
couldn't
congealed.
heat it up on Shabbos, right? So that's why we have a cholent, because a cholent then is something that is going to be on the fire all night. It's going to stay hot, and the longer that it's on the fire, really, the better it is for the cholent. But it can take this heat overnight. If you put a soup on the fire and leave it overnight, then it's going to ruin the soup.
It'll be like...
Right. So
And then the pot will start to burn.
and so what we can't do is place anything liquid on the blech, so during the day. Right. It has to be a dry solid, basically. So okay, and then if it had a lot of fat, if it's meat that had a lot of fat, so that the gravy congealed, as long as it's congealed, that's a solid, right? And so if that goes on, and then
Yeah, you'll get that with meat or even with fish.
right,
too.
then incidentally, if incidentally there's a little liquid gravy there, because our purpose isn't to eat the gravy, it's to eat the meat, then it's okay that the gravy's there.
Interesting. Okay.
All right, so okay, so once again, then the Piskei Tshuva brings the Eliyah Rabbah, who holds that there is an isser to light the wicks since it will be cooking basar b'chalav. This is because he holds there is bishul acher bishul, there is cooking after cooking with basar b'chalav. However, the Pri Megadim says that to take meat and milk that were already cooked separately and cook them together is asur mid'oraisa. But if the meat and milk were already cooked together, it is mutter to cook them again.
Oh, really?
Therefore, in the case of Ner Hanukkah, there would not be an isser of cooking basar b'chalav. Right. So at least we have that.
Why is mutter the other question?
In other words, In other words, in the case of Ner Hanukkah, the problem would not be cooking basar v'chalav again, right? Because it's already been cooked. It's already an entity that exists. And so we're not doing anything forbidden by cooking basar v'chalav again. So in other words, you're not allowed to go and get a job flipping burgers in McDonald's. So you can't make cheeseburgers in McDonald's as a Jew, right? Because
or pepperoni pizza.
Right, or a pepperoni pizza, right? And so you can't do these things as a Jew. Why? Because you are creating basar v'chalav. You're creating the entity that is meat and milk. But once it's already been created, if you cook it again, then you're not doing anything. You're not creating a new entity. So, but does that mean just because there's no problem of cooking basar v'chalav again, that does not mean that we can use the butter in the ben yomo meat pot to light our candles because of the problem of a shiur?
So you cannot use pepperoni pizzas to light a Hanukkah candle. Is that what we're saying? Like, yes, no.
Yes, that's what we're saying, effectively.
I'll never make that mistake because now I understand.
Some of them are pretty oily.
All right.
Okay.
So,
All right. Got it.
good one?
Yeah.
That's kind of a fun problem. No?
Okay. We resolve it?
Yeah, we solve it. So the answer would be because of the shiur, you cannot use the butter cooked in the ben yomo meat pot for ner
Because it's
Hanukkah.
non-existent in a sense.
Right.
But
But the cool thing is that initially it would seem that the hana is going to take you out, but because of the fact that you don't derive any benefit from a mitzvah, right? Because we're required to do mitzvahs. So we're not deriving benefit from them. It's just expected of us as servants of God. So then it would seem that we have an in to use the butter cooked in the ben yomo meat pot, but in the end we don't, because there's this whole idea of a shiur, that ner Hanukkah is a mitzvah that requires a shiur of time. We need a half an hour's time, and by definition, then our butter in a ben yomo meat pot has no shiur, and so it can't provide the half hour that we need.
Can I ask a question about the mitzvah that you just mentioned in this example? Like, so if you do a mitzvah and there is a benefit that you derive, for example, I assume it's a mitzvah to save somebody's life, but what if, like, a doctor is being paid to do that? Like, does that mean it's not a mitzvah because he got derived benefit by getting a salary? Or is it a mitzvah anyway?
So,
Could somebody say, "Oh, you're just doing your job"? That's not a mitzvah.
so then maybe it's not the actual saving of the life that he's receiving the salary for, receiving compensation for. It's the preparation.
Oh,
right.
That's very
So
good.
how is it then that these Balei Tefillah, so the Chazanim and the cantors come on for the high holidays, and they want to be paid $6,000-$7,000 for
So
this,
they're getting paid
right?
for
How
the
can they be
preparation.
paid? How can they be paid for work on Shabbos or Yom Tov? Right? They can't be. Right? So they're being paid for the preparation.
Oh, that's a great answer.
Yeah. All right. Now, if I can find it. Yes. Okay.
sorry, I have to drop out. I'll send you a text, but I enjoyed the shiur, and I'll be back on Thursday. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you for coming.
Thank you.
All right, just 1 second. Okay, here we go. So, on Shabbos, we always skip over to page 114, I believe. We skip over B'mei Madlikin, so the laws of kindling the lights on Shabbos. And but that is actually chapter 2 of Gemara Shabbos. And in the Gemara here, there is an exhaustive 3-blat discussion of the laws of Hanukkah. Like that, all of the laws of Hanukkah have their source from this part of the Gemara. And it comes up because it's all about kindling lights. So it comes up, it uses the subject of wicks and oils to segue into an exhaustive 3-blat presentation of the laws of Hanukkah. I want to... All right, let's just put it. Good evening, Aaron.
Good evening.
All right, Rav Huna said, regarding the wicks and the oils of which the sages said, we may not kindle with them on Shabbos, we may likewise not kindle with them on Hanukkah, both on Shabbos and on a weekday. That is...
We saw a guy coming in and we're like, oh, I don't know if he's supposed to be here.
Thank you for checking.
Yeah,
He's okay.
Come in this one time. You want any hot coffee or anything?
Nah, it's okay, guys. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm glad for the quick response time.
Wow.
Yeah, it was quick response.
So we have a police presence outside all the time right now. And they came in to check up on,
They wanted to make sure Aaron was
Aaron
kosher.
here. Yeah. All right. So oils, that is on all nights of Hanukkah, whether it be Friday night or a weeknight. Okay, so this opinion is elucidated. Rava said, what is Rav Huna's reasoning for ruling thus? It is because he holds that if one's Hanukkah light became extinguished, one is obliged to rekindle it. And also that it is permissible to make use of a Hanukkah light's illumination. Rav Huna's first reason discussed in the previous note, applies to all Hanukkah kindlings, irrespective of whether they occur on Shabbos or during the week. Hence, the fact that Rav Huna made special mention of Shabbos indicates the existence of a reason for prohibiting inferior wicks and oils that uniquely relates to Shabbos. To wit, since according to Rav Huna, the Hanukkah lights may be used for personal purposes, for example, for reading or doing work, there is the concern that if a flickering flame is produced, one will, on Shabbos, inadvertently tilt the menorah to improve its light, thereby performing the forbidden labor of kindling. Hence, eliminating that concern is another reason for the prohibition against using inferior wicks and oils on Hanukkah.
Can I ask a question with
Yes.
regard to that? So, if, let's say, for whatever reason, and this could be either Shabbos or not Shabbos, like the lights are out in the room, but then you light the Hanukkah candles, is it against the rules to read by the Hanukkah candles because you're not supposed to derive benefit from them? And you wouldn't have been able to read otherwise because all the other lights are out.
Yes, you're not allowed to derive any.
And that would be considered deriving benefit.
Right.
Okay.
That's why we have the shamash, we have the helper light there, from which we are deriving all of the benefit of the illumination. Okay, so a second opinion regarding the use of inferior oils and wicks on Hanukkah, Rav Chisda said, we may kindle with the oils and wicks prohibited for Shabbos on a Hanukkah weekday, but not on a Hanukkah Shabbos. Mm-hmm. The Gemara explains this opinion. Rav Chisda distinguishes between Shabbos and the ordinary days of the week because he holds that if one's Hanukkah light became extinguished during the designated period, one is not obliged to rekindle it, and also that it is permissible to make use of a Hanukkah light's illumination. Okay, but we know that that neither of these is really the case. So we have to have the light burn for 30 minutes. So if it does go out, we need to rekindle it, and also it's not permissible to make use of the Hanukkah light's illumination. That is the halacha l'maaseh. So in other words, as we're reading the Gemara, we have to understand that these are opinions that are being brought and are not necessarily the practical halacha. Right? It's not necessarily what we do. However, by having all of these opinions, then we understand where this is coming from. Also, in the case that we can't do something to the best degree, then what is the next best degree? And so we can then rely on these other opinions. So that is the halachic enterprise. So a third opinion regarding the use of inferior oils and wicks on Hanukkah, Rav Zera said in the name of Rav Masna, and some say that Rav Zera said in the name of Rav, regarding the wicks and oils of which the sages said, we may not kindle with them on Shabbos, we may, however, kindle with them on Hanukkah, both on a weekday and on Shabbos. This opinion also is elucidated. Rav Yirmiyah said, what is Rav's reason for ruling thus? It is because he holds that if one's Hanukkah light became extinguished, one is not obliged to rekindle it. And also that it is forbidden to make use of a Hanukkah light's illumination.
So we do have to rekindle, relight it if it goes out, or we don't?
We do, practically. If it hasn't burned for 30 minutes.
And what if whatever you call that extra candle that you light the others with, what if that's already spent and you can't use that anymore, but you have to relight them? Then are you allowed to directly do it, or do you put in like a backup extra candle?
Relight it, I guess.
Right.
If all of them are on, and you haven't.
Like if the shemesh go out first and you have to relink, Do we have to put first to shamash and then to the
Right.
Okay, got it.
Right.
So you have to use a backup shamash.
No, you only have to relight the shamash
Right,
first.
relight
and
the
then-
What if
shamash.
it's oil and for some reason that oil thing has been used up now? Can you add oil to it? Oh, you can add oil to it. Okay, so that's the answer.
But it means that they already spent 20 minutes more or more. So if you use already, you don't need to light.
Sometimes if there's wind or something, if there's a breeze, it can burn faster, and
That's true.
the fuel can burn faster. All right, but wait, let's skip to some of the famous questions here. Okay, so the Gemara prescribes various levels of performing the mitzvah of kindling the Hanukkah lights. The rabbis taught in a brisa, the essential commandment of Hanukkah lights is one light each night for a man and his entire household. And those who pursue mitzvahs have one light each night for each and every one in their household. And for those who most fervently pursue mitzvahs, Beis Shammai say that on the first day of Hanukkah one kindles 8 lights and henceforth continuously decreases that amount. But Beis Hillel say on the first day one kindles 1 light and henceforth continuously increases that amount. The Gemara offers 2 explanations of the dispute between Beis Hillel and Beis Shammai. Ula said 2 Amoraim in the West disagree about the interpretation of the Tanaic dispute. And they are Rabbi Yossi bar Avin and Rabbi Yossi bar Tzavida. One of them said that Beis Shammai's reason for requiring a continual decrease for 8 lights to 1 is so that the various kindlings correspond to the number of days yet to come. And Beis Hillel's reason for requiring a continual increase from 1 light to 8 is so that the various kindlings correspond to the number of days already passed. And one of them said that Beis Shammai's reason for requiring a continual decrease from 8 lights to 1 is so that the various kindlings correspond to the bull sacrifices at the Sukkot festival. And Beis Hillel's reason for requiring a continual increase from 1 light to 8 is the principle that in sacred matters we elevate and do not lower the degree of sanctity.
What's the bowl? I don't know about the bowl thing.
Okay, so we've talked about this. So we've got to do the math here. So on the first day of Sukkos, let's see. So 13, 25, 36, 46, 55, and 8 is 60, 63, and 7 is 70. Perfect. Okay, so on the first day of Sukkot, they brought 13 bull offerings. And on the second day, 12, the third day, 11, 10, 9, 8, 7 on the 7th day. And because if you add 13 plus 12 plus 11 plus 10 plus 9 plus 8 plus 7, you have 70 for the 70 nations of the world. And
this is sounding familiar.
And then we have Shmini Atzeres, so the 8th day, where there was only 1 being brought, because this is the last day that we're sitting in the sukkah. Hashem wants to be in the sukkah alone with us. And that's why the 1 brought on Shmini Atzeres is for Klal Yisrael. And so it kind of makes sense then. Beis Shammai is saying that we start out with all of the nations, and then we're going to taper down to one, like on Sukkos. We have a precedent for that, right? But Beis Hillel doesn't like this. He says that no, in holy matters, we're always increasing.
Was there
Tremendous principle then,
and
that's the halacha l'maaseh. That's how we like. No.
Was there a period of time where some people were doing it the other way, where they would start off with the 8 candles and then work downward?
Well, I guess Beis Shammai, that's what he was doing. Yeah.
I see.
All right, so that's a good one. No. Okay, now there is, of course, the famous question. All right, so now let's go to what is the reason for the rabbinic Yom Tov of Hanukkah, right? And it says straight out, on account of which miracle did the rabbis establish it? It is, as the rabbis taught in a brisa found in Megillas Taanis, on the 25th of Kislev, the days of Hanukkah commence. They are 8 days in all, on which it is not permitted to eulogize or to fast. For when the Syrian Greeks entered the sanctuary, they contaminated all the flasks of oil that were in the sanctuary. And when the royal Hasmonean house gained the upper hand and vanquished them, the Hasmoneans searched the Heichel area and found only 1 flask of oil that was lying out of sight with the Kohen Gadol's seal still intact, and it contained only enough oil to kindle the menorah for 1 day. However, a miracle was performed with this oil, and they kindled the lights in the menorah with it for 8 days until other ritually pure oil could be obtained. So know that nowhere are we talking about light and darkness there. We are talking only about oil. That is the miracle of Hanukkah, the oil. The oil, the oil, the oil, right? So who cares what a non-Jewish neuroscientist has to say? And it's ironically, the Syrian Greeks, they had no problem with the Jews practicing their religion as long as they didn't talk about miracles. So because miracles aren't rational, miracles require faith in a higher authority, and this then the Greeks didn't want to hear. And so it is Hepik Yiddishkeit and Hepik Hanukkah. It's exactly contrary to Yiddishkeit and Hanukkah to say that it wasn't the oil that is the miracle of Hanukkah. It was exactly the oil that is the miracle of Hanukkah, and we believe that Hashem can make physical miracles in the world, and that's what makes this a special festival. And the light is an incidental kick to this. It's a part of things. But the miracle is the oil itself. Why 8 days? Because it took 8 days to get up to the north to find the right olives that needed to be crushed. The oil had to be made, and it had to be brought back down, the kosher oil.
That's why it's 8 days.
That's why it was 8 days. And so and so the miracle was that the oil was sufficient for these 8 days until they brought the new oil down. And that what should have just existed for 1 day's kindling, which should have been sufficient just for 1 day's kindling, was enough for all 8 days. Now we're in a position to ask the famous question of the Beis Yosef. So the Beis Yosef is also Yosef Karo. This is his commentary in the Torah, which is the predecessor to the Shulchan Aruch. So the Torah gave pretty much the structure of the Shulchan Aruch, and the Beis Yosef commentary on the Torah is Yosef Karo kind of warming up for his Shulchan Aruch, where he brings the entire origin of every halacha. It's such an amazing piece of scholarship. So he's taking something from its roots in the Gemara and going through all of the commentaries to come up with a position in the Beis Yosef, and that's why in the Shulchan Aruch he doesn't source anything. He just brings straight decisions, halakhic decisions. So, because if you want the sources, really, you can find them in the Beis Yosef. So, tremendous, tremendous work. Okay, so the Beis Yosef asks why the sages established an 8-day festival. So, why 8 days? Since the single untouched flask contained sufficient oil for one night's kindling, it turns out that the miracle occurred for only 7 nights.
Because the first one wasn't the miracle.
Right. There was enough for one day. So why would the holiday be 8 days? It's a pretty good question. Okay, so over the centuries, many great scholars have presented numerous answers to this justly famous question. So Beis Yosef himself offers the following 3. A, the Hasmoneans divided the tahor oil into 8 parts and poured only 1 part into the menorah's cups each night. Since the 1/8 portion burned the entire night, each night indeed witnessed a miracle. Number 1. Number 2, the flask remained full after every filling of the menorah's cups. Hence, it was evident even on the first night that a miracle was occurring.
These are options for like what might be
real? These are solutions.
Okay.
Right.
What was the second?
So the second one is that as soon on the first night as they poured the oil into the cup, it refilled, and so the miracle was evident.
On every night it did that?
Right, and on every night and so on each night, then it was evident that a miracle was occurring. Okay, number 3. These are all answers that the Beis Yosef himself brings. So, okay, number 3, on the first night, the entire contents of the flask were poured into the cups, and the menorah's lights burned all night. Nevertheless, the cups were still full in the morning, and so it happened each night. Hence, a miracle occurred on all 8 nights.
So the oil never decreased when it was being burned. Like the burning bush never got destroyed. The oil never got burned.
According to... Yeah, I mean, I guess, in effect. Right. It was still full in the morning. Okay, Meiri writes that on the first day of Hanukkah we pronounce blessings for the miracle of our deliverance from the Greek oppressors, and also as an expression of thanks for the discovery of the single flask of undefiled oil. Okay, no, that doesn't. Right. All right.
Did the Kohen Gadols survive the assault on the temple? Were they left alive, or were they killed or chased away?
Were the Kohen Gadols?
Because you needed them to put seals on the new oil that was coming in 8 days later. Like, I think, if I'm following this right. So some of them must have been alive to be able to do that.
Sure.
Did you have backups in case something happened to the Kohen Gadol? Could other Kohens do it?
Yes, I mean, there were backups.
Okay.
Thanks for that clarification of the light and the oil.
All right. Well, it's off.
Good night.
Good night. All right. Okay, so yeah, there's lots of fun stuff in the Gemara here, but we had a little taste of it there. So I wish everybody a Freilich and Hanukkah.
Can we daven at home?
Rabbi.
Can we daven at home?
Oh, right, we got more people. Never mind.
Just from looking into
Freilich and Hanukkah.
Freilich and Hanukkah, Karen.
Stay warm in
Bye.
Ohio.